All right, guys. Hello, everybody. Karina, are you with us?
We're here.
Fantastic. So let me do a brief introduction over here. Welcome, everybody, to the fourth Real Estate Social Rockstar Show. And today is going to be a fantastic show that you are going to love. I can tell you this in advance because I myself am super excited for the wisdom Karina is about to share here. So let me give you a brief introduction to Karina. We have Karina Loken here. Karina runs the Loken Group. They are a powerhouse, mega powerhouse team. And I'm going to let Karina give a brief introduction. If you don't know who she is, you should know who she is, and later we'll tell you how you can reach her as well. So Karina, why don't you give us a brief introduction?
Sure. So our team is here in Houston, Texas. We have a team of 47 rock stars right now, all working together. And we're really, what sets us apart and what makes us very different is that we're running our real estate business as a business. So if you walk in, you're going to find us running things here like any corporation would, and the service we provide is real estate. I think that's really a different piece for people to kind of grasp. We all started the same way that everybody else has started, on the phones, prospecting and finding new business. We started our team this is our 6th year, so about 5.5 years ago. We're really proud.
47 people. You got 47 people in 6 years?
Correct.
Damn.
Yep.
How many did you start with?
And well, part of it's running it as a business and having a big vision. And we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to turn the sound off on my phone so that doesn't, there we go. That'll help. And last year we closed 992 transactions and 218 million in volume.
Wow. When you started, was it just you? Was it like you and 5 people? How did that start?
So about 7 years ago, I got my real estate license and started as an independent agent and was an agent for about a year, and then backed out of my business, gave up my business, whatever you'd like to call it, and took over what would be a CEO position. It's in the Keller Williams model. It's the team leader role as an interim team leader for a brand newly launched market center. So I really learned the broker side of the business, but gave up my business. And so then the following year, we launched our team. I wanted to get back into production. My husband's really, he's the brain behind all of it. He comes from a C-level position since as long as I've known him in corporate. And his company closed his whole division. And we had some really big decisions to make. And so we launched our team with just he and I. Husband, wife.
Wow.
Barely husband, wife, about 6 months into it, but husband, wife.
Wow. That is amazing. So let me ask you, are there agents that are not in your team, in your office?
So we have different departments. Our inside sales team, everybody on our team, first of all, is licensed. Okay. And that's important to know. That varies state by state. But for us, in the Texas guidelines, there are a lot of conversations that anyone on our team cannot have if they don't have a license. So to cover everyone from a liability standpoint, we make sure we're all licensed, and that way we can service our clients.
Is there anyone that's in your office, that's in your Keller Williams office, that is not part of your team, or is your team the office?
Correct. So we have what's called a mega agent office in the Keller Williams model. So we have a standalone office that's just for our team. We're not officing in the brokerage office.
Understood. Okay, cool. So basically you have your own office.
Correct.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So one of the reasons that I'm very, very excited and happy to have you on this call is a couple of things. You and I obviously both very firmly believe in teamwork and working in a team and individualized roles. And that's obviously apparent from how we both run our businesses. But one of the things that when we were talking about, you mentioned that set a light bulb in my mind that I said, Karina has got to get on my show and talk to my audience about this was, I was talking to you about how does an agent go about, just start off with just an individual agent, how they go about starting a business, because we all know that there are millions of different people telling you to do X, Y, Z, do everything, and so on and so forth. And you said to me something that I'm going to ask for you to get into a little bit here. You said to me, Michael, Michael, listen, an agent needs to figure out how much money they want to make, what do they want to do, and kind of work backwards from there. So to jump right into meat and potatoes, can you tell me what you mean by that?
Absolutely. So whether you are an individual agent and you're starting your business as an individual, or you have, like we had, two of us, husband, wife, and had a little bit more agreeing to do in this very first step, but you need to sit down and get very clear on what your mission and your vision and your values are. And once you have complete clarity on that, you're going to have such an easier time building your business and staying profitable and really staying true to who you are, instead of trying to do things that really don't fit you and what you're trying to achieve. Okay. So that is first and foremost. Once you have that vision and once you know what your goals are, and I would encourage everyone to sit down, and we do this actually every year, but to sit down and write out what is your one big thing that you're going to do for the next business year. And you should be doing that right now. We plan ahead on our team. We plan ahead pretty far in advance. Our residential real estate cycle runs on about a 90-day turn time. And so right now, your prospecting efforts, December, beginning of January. So first you need your goals. Once you have those goals, then you need to look at what it's going to take to do that. And that was, I think, Michael, what you and I were talking about, is to sit down and work backwards. So first and foremost, you need to know how much money you want to make, right? Now, when you're talking about how much money you want to make, you need to talk about how much money you want to take home, right? Because Uncle Sam still gets his piece of it, and your brokerage gets whatever they get. You know, every brokerage is different, but they always get a piece somehow, some way. We all have expenses for our business. So and everybody's costs are different depending on what state you're in, what brokerage, or franchise you're with. You have to know those expenses. So that comes off the top. And before you take anything out, that's called your gross income. Okay. And I'm going to put that out there because coming into real estate, I was an elementary school teacher for a decade. I never talked gross or net or any of I've learned a lot. And those weren't words that I ever used. But I think it's really important for agents that aren't looking at those numbers to know overall what is the money that you're making when you get paid a commission check. Let's say your commission is $7,000, right? When you go to that closing table, that is not $7,000 ever that's going in our pocket. That is $7,000 that's coming to the business. And then once you have that gross of your $7,000 from that transaction, you need to look at all of your expenses that come out of that, and what's left is there for profit and for savings and for reinvesting into your business.
Gotcha. So, basically people need to look at their business and understand the details, like you said, money comes in, how much goes into your pocket. And
absolutely.
And this isn't a conversation here to be talking about, what kind of brokerage you go with. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what brokerage you go with in terms of, you need to know your numbers in your brokerage and more than that, right? I think a big point is it doesn't matter if your brokerage is 100% or your brokerage is like 20%. What matters is how much are you making and taking home.
That's exactly
everybody
right.
needs to figure out the numbers and where they fit. So you were saying work backwards. So basically you're saying that you need to know, okay, if this is the amount of money I want to make in my pocket, I need to do X number of deals because I'm going to make on average X amount of money on X number of deals. So now we're at a point where we're an agent and we've worked backwards. I'm going to make up numbers here. We want to make $100,000 a year. And,
Sure.
On every deal we make on average $5,000. So, that we pocket after expenses. So let's say you need to do 20 deals a year. Okay, fine. So now we get that. We need to do 20 deals a year. We got 0.1 completed, right? Good.
Got it. Perfect.
Now, my second question is, how do you go and get those 20 deals? What's the ABCs here? How do you somebody's starting, they're like you, they were a school teacher, they jump in now, they're a hustler, they're willing to do whatever it takes. What do they need to do?
Okay, well, that's key, what you just said. They have to be willing to do whatever it takes. You have to have that chutzpah to stay with it. This business can be a very lonely business in the beginning, and you get told no a lot. So first of all, you have to get your mindset right. that first and foremost. But once you have that goal of what you want to make and you know your average price point, so you know how many transactions that's going to take, this business is very much a law of averages, okay? Which means you have to know your numbers. And that is usually not a very sexy or glamorous thing to talk about, but it's really important to know your conversion rates. I can tell you, when you back this out, you need to back these numbers out all the way to how many calls do you have to make to get how many contacts on the phone, how many people do you actually have to have a voice-to-voice with or a face-to-face with. And once you know how many of those you have to make to get one appointment, and how many appointments do you have to have in order to get one closing. And that's where you hit that number of your transactions to get you to what you want to make. But in order to know all those numbers, you have to know how many people you have to talk to voice to voice, face to face, in order to get that appointment, and how many appointments it takes to have one that closes. Every market's different. You know, we've gone through different periods of time where, you know, you have to have 3 on the books in order for one of them to close, because a lot of things were busting out as rules were changing, lender rules were changing, things were busting out a lot, right? Lenders weren't asking all the questions they needed to for a while till they learned. We go through different market shifts. Yeah. Right now we're going through a real shift here in the Houston market. And I don't know how many of you are starting to feel markets softening around the country, but if you aren't, brace yourself, because it's coming, and that's very normal. But we are having to talk to more people here, we're finding, in order to convert to one appointment. So I was our first quote unquote inside sales agent. My role, when it was just Lance and I was on the phone prospecting, and I sent him on the appointments, and that kept my butt in a seat on the phone for a minimum of 4 hours a day. And that's what it took. And my conversion rate.
About that. Sorry, keep on going. Sorry about that.
Well, my conversion rates in the very beginning weren't what they turned into, right? So over time, I didn't have to sit on the phones quite as long to get my appointment. I started out with about a 35-to-1 ratio, where I had to talk to 35 or 40 people in order to get one appointment. With practice and scripting and role playing and getting really good on the phone, which just came with time on task over time, I had it down to about a 10-to-1, where I only had to talk to 10 people in order to get one appointment. But if you don't know those numbers, you can't time block your day, and it's a law of averages. I might have had to talk to 20 people and I'll get 2 appointments, but it might have been number 19 and 20.
Right. So let me ask you, who are you calling when you're reaching out? Because calling 10 people and getting an appointment, and are these qualified appointments, or just somebody willing to sit down and talk to you about, the market? They're not necessarily looking to sell quite yet, but you're just adding someone to your database. Can you talk to us about, I want to understand these metrics, because I think people are very fuzzy on the metrics, and everyone's is a little bit different, but I'd really love to, keep it real with people here. Let's talk about these metrics. Share with us.
Absolutely. So Sphere was a big part for us. And if you're a good, honest person, I think that's a good, honest place to start, because people know your character. People know that you're going to work hard for them. People know that you're going to treat them like you would treat your family. And people knew that about us. And so we, it's always great to do business with people who are a lot like you, because that's where you're going to do the most business. You talk the same language. You have a lot of things in common. It's just a much more natural, sincere conversation. So we play tennis, and we did a lot of lead generating with our tennis sphere. We've only lived in Houston for about 10 years now. So you figure 8 years ago, we were still really learning to get to know people when I was an individual agent. 6 years ago, when we started this, we had a little bit more traction with that sphere. So when we started our team, we had a lot more meat, so to speak, as far as the relationship that we had with our sphere. We also like to talk about low-hanging fruit here on the team. Those are people that are basically raising their hand and going, I wanted to sell my house and something happened and it didn't get done. So whether those are expireds or for sale by owners, terminated listings here in the state of Texas, and I think that's pretty true everywhere, if they're already on the market, that is not a conversation that you may have. Right. Even though they are the lowest hanging fruit, that's off, right. Off the books there, can't do that. But certainly we did a lot of calling with expireds. We still do today. Every morning we get up and we call the expired listings that are hitting the Houston market each day. Calling expireds and calling for sale by owners are very different conversations. And quite honestly, we were keeping it real here. I liked calling expireds better than I like calling for sale by owners. Part of that, I think, also varies with the market, and your conversation changes depending on what's happening in your market. And then we tried a lot of other things, honestly, but those two were first and foremost, was expireds and Sphere. It's really important to have 3 to 4, I think, sources for your lead generating, whatever those are.
Can I ask you a question about your Sphere calling?
Sure.
So you're calling and, you were at a 35-to-1 ratio when you started. Now you're at a 10-to-1 or so around there. Mm-hmm. So you're calling your Sphere. These are people that you know, friends, family, people on the tennis court. And are you just saying, hey, you want to get together and talk about real estate? Or are you trying to qualify and it ends up being 10 out of every people that you're friends with is looking to sell today? Because that seems like if I talk to 10 people, I don't think 1 out of every 10 people I know is looking to sell today. So
sure.
Tell me.
So again, a lot of it I think is market dependent, because you need to be taking value to your Sphere, whatever that looks like. We had a huge amount of foreclosures at the time that we were really launching this team. And so we were a little more crafty about working with our Sphere. I have a rule, and Lance does too, that we're not going to go to tennis and start talking about real estate, right? Tennis is supposed to be a place for everybody to go and relax and kind of unwind and decompress from their workday. Yeah. However, we ran a lot of tennis tournaments at that time. And Lance would run the tournament. It was a lot of community give back kinds of things that we were doing. And it might be like an all day Saturday and Sunday event. So in the middle of the tournament, I might have to go show a house. And so I'd run into the restroom out of my tennis clothes, throw on my work clothes, come back out, go find Lance and tell my tennis team that I've got to run and show this property, which I usually did actually. I have to go show this property and I'll be back. And so everybody now sees me in my regular dress, right? So that prompts them to start the conversation with me. And so then I could really come from a place of contribution, because not only could I tell them about the house that I was running up the street to show, then they want to know, well, what's happening in our local market? If I was doing that, it had to be close to our tennis courts. So it was close to their community. And that just got us into conversation. And after a couple of those conversations, standing beside the tennis court, we started to become really the source for information about our local market and became the local expert. And that's really how we generated that business with our Sphere. And now fast forward 6 years later, it's kind of like geographic farming. It takes a little while to get some traction. We walk into one of our tennis dinners with our friends or tennis parties, and we've done transactions with at least half of the people that are there on any given occasion. Wow. So it really comes down again to that mission, vision, values, and the values there are key, because people really know what we stand for. They really know what we're all about. They know how we run our business. We've been very vocal about that, and they want somebody that they can trust and that's going to really know what's happening in the market. So you have to really know your stuff.
So let me bring it a little bit towards maybe our New York City market over here. Okay. And just actually before I jump in, so it's funny when you're talking about your numbers, because I found a few of my old notebooks when, from years ago. I don't know if you can see this on screen. So I have this notebook over here, and on this notebook I have over here, this is like September 2008, September 16, 2008, right? And I have listed like 31 just listed just sold calls, 27 just listed sold calls, appointment set, for sale by owner 10 calls. And I used to write down on this, on this old thing here, and then I have like so many. I always kept these because, when, for those of you who are listening now or going to be listening later or watching this, if you're already doing the cold calling thing and you're prospecting like you should be doing, or hopefully after the show when you start doing that, and you see how much work it is, sometimes it's a good feeling to look back on a book like this and be like, wow, I did that. And right. Every day, if I came in and even now, I look at some of these numbers and I see like this one day over here where I'm looking just listed, just sold calls, and it says over here that I only made 15 calls that day. Like, I'm depressed looking at that number. It's like from 2008.
Right.
But it becomes a religion, it becomes, So people need to understand that it's not something you can just go and do for a day. This is a commitment, a full-on commitment.
Well, and as a new agent, we always joked when we were teaching classes about the macaroni and cheese and steak diet. And I think, especially for individual agents who are doing their own prospecting and then going on their appointments, it's so important to create a habit of time blocking. Because what happens is if let's say you lead generate, right? You do a really good job for 2 or 3 weeks and you're on the phone and you're prospecting 3 hours a day the way that you should, all of a sudden you have a lot of business, or you should have a lot of business, right? So now you're out on appointments and you're going to inspections and you're closings and things are starting to happen. And all of a sudden what happens is those 3 hours that you're supposed to be time blocking and getting on the phone in the morning start to turn into 2 hours and then 1 hour. And then, oh, darn, I didn't get there today. And all of a sudden with that, we mentioned earlier today in this broadcast, that 90-day cycle in residential real estate, right? So now all of a sudden I was eating steak. I was going out for dinner. I was having a great life because all this was going on and now it's dried up. And it's because during that time when you were busy, you let go of that time block for prospecting. And so if anything in your business is going to stay consistent, your lead generation has to stay consistent, or you're going to be eating ramen noodles and macaroni more than you'd like.
Yeah, it's the fuel that drives your business. If you don't have
Absolutely.
fuel, doesn't matter how nice your car is, it's not going to go.
Nope.
So let me bring this back to New York City a little bit, okay? Because I'd love to get your advice here. So a lot of agents in New York City, they start their career in rentals, okay? We have a big rental market.
Sure.
And a lot of people and a lot of consumers, they come to New York City, they may move here, they graduate college, whatever it may be, and they rent an apartment for a couple of years. And a percentage of those people end up being purchasers. And one of the big things that I teach here at Meier, it's like a big part of what we do because we're very, very into education, and is that I always tell people, when you're working in rentals, understand what your long game is. And if your long game is to get into sales, then understand this is the most fantastic, amazing opportunity for you to be building this database, for you to be building the sphere that's going to come from this database as well, and then be able to leverage this to get into sales. Right. And I have agents, also a lot of agents that are successful in rentals, who they come to work here because they're at another firm where they're doing their rental thing, but they're not being educated on that acceleration. How do we accelerate? And so I'd love to talk to you for a little bit about, to those specific agents who maybe are currently in rentals, doing it for 2 years. They've, let's say they're doing, I don't know, let's say they're doing 2 to 4 deals a week. So at the end of the year, let's say they did 50 rental deals last year. Okay? Wow. So now they have 50 deals, that they close the deal, they sign a deal. Now they have a database, maybe they're doing it 2 years. So maybe they have a database of 100 people they've signed contracts with, right? Now they're looking at this database. Some of them might be looking to sell. Some of them might be looking to rent again. What would you advise them to do with this, 100 plus database? What are the conversations they should be having? Give them drop some knowledge on these guys. Okay.
So first and foremost, the day that they close on that rental, somebody needs to get in their calendar, whether it's them or their administrative assistant, whoever closes out that file, and put in their calendar 3 months before the end of the rental that those folks are going to be done with their rental, whether that's a 1-year lease or a 3-year lease or whatever somebody has entered into. Okay. Because there has to be a hard contact over the phone with that person a few months before they would be potentially ready to make a move. Maybe that's going to a different rental, but one way or another, that's a future transaction, right? Yep,
definitely.
Now that person might get relocated because of a job somewhere in between. Let's say it's I don't know what your rental market looks like, but we do sometimes, 18-month, 24-month leases here. So let's say it's a 24-month lease. Somebody's here for a project for work. Well, all of a sudden in the middle of that, they get up and told they're going to have to go somewhere else for work, right? That project ended. So it's really important the whole way during that time frame and ongoing to stay in touch with that person. Because not only is that person a transaction, but that person is a referral source. And if you have shown that you're the expert to that client is hopefully going to trust you enough now to tell other people about what a trusted advisor and consultant you are in any real estate transaction, right? It might be for their family members, for their friends, and they might need you again sooner than you thought. So what we do on our team is we do a 3 or 4 times a year. We shoot for 4. We make sure it's at least a minimum of 3 times that we are on the phone with all of our past clients and everyone that's in our, what we call our MET database. So that's our sphere, that's past clients, that's friends and family, and other agents, honestly, is part of our sphere as well, because we get a lot of agent referrals here in Houston, and I would imagine in any major city, you're receiving those. So that's an important part of your sphere also, is the agent sphere. And so 3 times to 4 times a year, we're on the phone with them, voice to voice. Okay. We also send out to our sphere database, we send out a monthly newsletter that has information of value. And then we also, on those calls, make sure that we're bringing them value, right? So for instance, our most recent call that we made, our market here is shifting. And I don't know if you're feeling that yet in New York City, but that call wasn't necessarily even just for our past client. It was, hey, I know that the national news is saying a lot's going on, but real estate is a very local piece of information as far as data and market statistics. Is there anything you'd like to know about what's going on in the market? We're here to be your resource, and really just to come from contribution and remind them that's what we're here for. When they have questions, call us. And hopefully then on that same phone call, and you have to ask, it doesn't just happen magically. You have to train people to think about saying, hey, you know what? The guy that lives in the apartment next door to me, we were just talking in the hall, and he's going to have to relocate to Chicago. He could probably really use some advice, right? So it might be a service that I'm helping that person find an agent in Chicago. That might be the service I'm providing that day. But there's always resources and value that we can be contributing. So if you're in that rental market, it is super important on a quarterly basis to stay in touch. And then in between those quarterly calls, find other ways to send value to your clients, a minimum of once a month.
Gotcha. That's perfect. So to translate that a little bit into, talking to a rental agent right now, and just to digest what you said and reiterate it. So basically, a good advice to real estate agents would be call up these 100 people that are in your database that you've done deals with and say to them, hey, I really had it was great working with you a year ago or 2 years ago or whatever it is. And I don't know if you've heard, but the market is shifting. And the rental market and the sales market are 2 different markets, and we handle both of them. And I just want to make sure you're hearing a lot of stuff on TV. You might as well hear something from an expert, your local resource over here. Do you have any questions about what's going on in the sales or the rental market? And then shut up.
You have to listen. Yep. We all have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yes.
2 ears and 1 mouth. I like that. That's fantastic. And then after that conversation, you're saying, after you've had that and you've listened, if they say, oh, we're not really looking to do anything at the moment, we have another 6 months left on our lease or whatever it is, then your next question is where you ask and you say, great, you can ask. What comes to mind for me is 1 of 2 things. Number one, as I said, the market is changing. Is there anyone that a neighbor, a friend, anyone that you think might be interested in learning and having a conversation about what's going on in our market? And again,
oh my, yes.
Yes. And then the third thing I think that I would say, or it's whatever, the second thing that I would say to somebody is, so you're not looking to move for another 6 months. Terrific. That's great. In 6 months, where do you think that might be?
Now you're starting to pre-qualify them. Yes. And, we on our team, one thing that I think has helped us drive to the success level that we've had so quickly is we have systems for everything. And I'll be very transparent. I am not the systems girl. I am terrible at creating systems, and I'm terrible at paperwork too, by the way. And so we, very quickly we leveraged those pieces to someone else. And I think you can do that whether you're an individual agent and you're not looking to build out a team. Some people don't want to have people that they're responsible for, honestly, but you still have a team. You still have your lender team. You still have your title company. Sometimes we have contract close coordinators if paperwork's not our thing. And when you leverage those pieces to somebody who's better than you, it frees up your time to do the things that you really are good at, which hopefully is prospecting and meeting with your clients and giving them great value. But the system side of it is so important because it saves you time in the long run.
So let me ask you a question. You say hopefully you're good at prospecting. Do you bring people into your team that aren't willing to sit there and hit the phones for 3-4 hours a day?
Well, I say that somewhat in jest because part of what, if Lance was sitting here, he would tell you is that he was terrible on the phones. He doesn't really like people. And he has admitted that in open rooms of thousands of people. So it's not a great kept secret, but he is really great at business, and he's great at consulting on good business decisions. I'm the person who loves to meet new people and loves to get to know them. And really, I do like to listen and hear what's happening and be sincere in the contribution that comes back. And so very quickly, not quickly enough, quite honestly, but quickly, we discovered that it was advantageous, and it was a system for us that I was the one on the phone prospecting, and then he was the one that went on the appointments and kept the follow-up because he is a systems guy. Mm-hmm. If you're not stellar on the phones and prospecting, number one, you need to get good at it yourself. So you need to get that training. You need to get role play partners. You need to get into script mastery. You need to get good at listing. And once you get through that piece, that you're in a position that you could train somebody else, now you have an opportunity for leverage. I'm a firm believer you don't pay other people for leads. You certainly, I don't know how many KW folks are on here. If anybody's familiar with Ben Kinney has told us a story, and it's one of my very favorites. He had an agent that came in and was struggling on the phones and said, give me your hot list of hot leads. That's what I want. I want hot leads. And he said, okay, have you heard this story? Okay, I'm going to get you hot leads.
Tell it.
Okay. So he went, he got the list. He came in, he gave it to this newer agent. He said, here's the list. You go call these hot leads. And the agent came back at lunchtime, was like, holy crap, I scheduled all these appointments and right? I want another list. Can I have another hot list for this afternoon? And he was like, absolutely. So he said to his administrative assistant, hey, can you pull out another one of those hot lists for this guy? He's on a roll today. So she opened the phone book. She took a page, she ripped it, and she handed it to him. And he went, wait a minute. No, I want the hot list. She goes, this is the hot list. I gave you a page from the phone book this morning. And it was all about the guy's mindset, because when he picked that list up, he thought he had low-hanging fruit, right? Yeah. And the magic is, if your head's in the right place when you get on the phone, it's 90% what you're thinking and 10% what you're saying. Yeah. And it, it all comes back to time on task over time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really, really good stuff. That's a really terrific story. And it's funny because for those of you who are doing a lot of prospecting now, and for those of you who, once again, are going to start doing it now, I can speak from my experience because, that's, like all the successful agents out there, the way we started is literally yellow. I started this business like 15 years ago. And back then you couldn't buy leads if you tried to. There was nowhere you could buy leads. There's no Zillow or anything like that. And so I would literally just yellowpages.com and I would print them out, and I would have my cell phone in one hand and I'd have my regular rotary dialer, because back then I didn't even have like the dialers back then. There's no modem. And I would dial because, while this is ringing, I could be dialing. So that's what I would do. And the reality is, some days I would walk into the office and I would come in, I'd be like, today I'm in a great mood today. And I pick up the phone and I'd be like, I just got 3 appointments.
Yes.
And then other days I'd come in and be like, I just wasn't feeling so good. I'm like, I sit here on the phones, and it would be deadly, and I wouldn't make one.
Right.
So crazy. It's up here.
It's all up there. And that's why those role play partners are important, because so much of the conversation, I think, with role play partners is the affirmations piece and having your head in the right place before you get on the phone. We require that. We have 12 people on our inside sales team right now who are all prospecting all day long. And they have role play partners first thing in the morning. We do rev ups together as a team, and we rev up again in the afternoon, because it's just so important to take that mental break and really pump yourself up and make sure that you've done a head check before you get on the phone.
Yeah, that is really, really smooth. So We've talked about a lot of really great stuff here. For an agent that is, that's starting right now, and they have this sphere, right? And then they have the for sale by. You said you like people to pick 3 or 4 different categories, right?
Right.
So that could be just like, just listed, just sold. You literally call the yellow pages around a sold listing.
Yep.
Number 2 is sphere, people that you know. And that can include for rental agents, their rental database.
Absolutely. It needs to include your past clients.
Your past clients. If an agent is starting out like that and they're not buying leads and they're just calling, is there any kind of number? Should they start off saying, hey, I need to talk to 35 people to schedule an appointment? And who should they be scheduling an appointment with?
Excuse me, I'm going to sneeze.
God bless you.
Okay. Sorry.
So you said God bless you before someone sneezes is like the worst. Like
I was like mid sneeze. Okay. So your question is, how should they start off with the conversion rate?
I guess my first question is, they're calling 35 people to get one appointment, maybe. Hopefully they're doing better. But let's say they start with an understanding. 35 people to get one appointment. Who are they scheduling an appointment with? What's a
Whoever says yes. Whoever says yes.
Okay. So what if the person doesn't say they're looking to buy or sell today? They just, I'd be happy to sit down and talk to you about real estate.
Okay. So no, you are looking on the phone to pre-qualify and find out. We categorize people if they are A clients, B clients, or C clients. Now, that's not saying one's more important than the other. And we actually, even on our consultation form, have them select that for themselves. That's just a timeline guide for us. Are you about to be homeless? Right? Is your rental about to expire and you need a house because after this weekend, you don't have a place to live? That's an A, right? Anything in the next 30 to 60 days is an A buyer or potential. We still call people that are leasing buyers. Or are you a B client? Are you in the next 60 to 90 days where you have a little bit of wiggle room, or you have one little last strand of something that has to be fixed? Maybe you need to finish your loan pre-approval, or you have to finish your divorce. We are a community property state in Texas. So that matters for us that a divorce has been finalized, and maybe that divorce is being finalized in the next few weeks, but we can't count on that till it's done. Things like that. And then a C buyer or seller is somebody who's not ready to do something for 90 days or more. And that's somebody that we are going to stay in touch with and make sure we're answering their questions and bringing them whatever value they need until they're ready to make that decision, because we're not going anywhere. So I think it's important to have those conversations. And like you said earlier, be a really good listener and listen for what people's needs are. And also be there to offer, information to them if they're kind of sitting on a fence and they're saying, well, I'm not in a hurry. Well, then it's time for you to ask more questions and find out what is their motivation for making a move, selling, buying, and what's that going to mean for them? Because then you can do a much better job on your consultation. On the conversion side of it, I think as a newer agent, or even as a more seasoned agent who maybe hasn't been doing a great job lead generating, as our market shifts, that's going to become more and more important. So I would implore anybody that's listening today to really start making a habit of getting on the phones and doing your prospecting and reaching out. And one thing that really got me better at calling my sphere, because that was quite frankly my least favorite. I felt in the beginning as a new agent like I was hounding my friends. I didn't like that feeling until I had a friend that called me and had run into an agent in an open house. And open houses are, I don't know if you do those in New York City, but that's a great source for newer agents here to meet new people. But I had somebody that called us and said, oh my gosh, I went to this open house and this agent created this sense of urgency for me and said I had to buy and I had to write my offer this weekend or I wasn't going to get this house. And so I did. And now I think I'm losing money. I think that they've done things that are unethical and I'm catching them at some. And I think there's others that I don't know about. And was sobbing, literally crying to me on the phone. And because she was under representation, I couldn't do anything about it. And that was that turning moment for me where I realized, hey, you know what? I do know what I'm doing. I am doing things ethically. And I do know that I'm taking good care of any client that I work with. And I owe that to anybody I know to get on the phones with them and make sure that they know and remember I'm here, so that when they do need an agent, even if it's Sunday afternoon in an open house and they're feeling pushed, that they call me from the open house and say, hey, I need your help.
Yeah.
And if we don't make those calls, we're doing a disservice to the people in our sphere, in our circle, in our family and our friends, because we owe it to them to just make sure they know we're always here for them.
That's great. You've done a fantastic job on on this call, on this interview, on this this show that we have over here. And I just the takeaways that I'd love people to really drum out and watch this and listen to this again is, number one, understand your numbers. That's something you said really key over here.
Absolutely.
You said that you have to hit the phones. You got to get good at it. You got to go out there and make contacts. You owe it to the people who confide in you to let them know you can help you. And that, you mentioned 3 or 4 different sources of where people should be making calls. That was really fantastic. There's really so much great stuff here. Karina, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing all this great information. From one diehard prospector to another, I know where you come from, you know where I come from. And, I would love and hope and dream that everybody that watches this really doubles down on their prospecting efforts so that they can build the life that they want, make the money that they want, and be able to do things with their life that they want to do because they put in the work and the effort. So,
absolutely.
Thank you so
much. And it's not,
very much.
There's no magic bullet. I think people walking away need to remember that when we're talking about prospecting and building that business. You said at the very beginning that you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. And it's been 5 years of a lot of hard work and a lot of 80 to 100-hour work weeks. This business is very simple, but it's not easy. And I think it's important to remember that and keep your head in the right place.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Karina. Karina, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way? Is it email, Facebook? What's the best way for people to reach you?
Sure. No, let me give everybody my cell phone number. It's probably the easiest. I'm a texter.
Awesome.
My number is 832-387-7142. And I'm happy to answer anybody's questions, but text is the easiest way to track me down. So 832-387-7142. And a backup plan is always my email, which is Karina, Karina, at the Loken Group, TheLoken Group, spelled out, GROUP.com.
Fantastic. Great. And whoever is listening to this right now and wants to watch the video as well, you can find this video on Facebook. Go to Michael Meier NYC. That's MICHAEL MEIER NYC. And this will be broadcast in a whole bunch of different places. A lot of knowledge here that I'm excited to share with everybody. And Karina, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity. Let us know if you ever need anything in Houston.
Of course, definitely.
All right. Take care.
Bye.